Hi, Copic in the Craft Room fans. Michelle Houghton here. We are going to do a quick review on the Copic ABS, kind of these mini compressors, and how to set one up. Mine actually is going to look a little unusual. Usually you would have a handle that kind of comes over the top. And it's already all put together. So some of this I'm going to unscrew pieces and screw them back in. When you're just getting it out of the box, none of these cords are attached. The only thing that's attached is that power cord. But you're going to have this piece truly separate from any cords. And this is the pressure gauge. So that piece comes separate, kind of wrapped in bubble wrap, and it literally screws right onto the end of your compressor. So it lengthens the length of your little compressor. And then the cord you're going to look for to hook into the end of that, so we're making one long vertical line, is the cord that's eventually going to attach into the gun itself. And that cord comes separate, and then the can that attaches into the gun is also separate. All of these pieces just screw together. So gun, then can, then the compressor hose, that gets screwed into the very end of that gauge. So you've got this nice long line. You've got your compressor, you've got the gauge, and then you've got the cord that goes into the gun. The last thing is you have a curly hose that goes from the gauge to the compressor itself. So those kind of screw into those two spots, and then you've got the on and off switch, and that's pretty much it. Just a little forewarning, make sure that you get that sitting someplace where it can't walk off a surface. It will walk around. So I've got another new stencil from Stencil Revolution. Thank you very much to them. And this one, actually, I love the size of this one because it looks like it was made to do this, to go into some of the Bible journaling pages. I think you could put it into any style of book or any type of journal, and I like that aspect. They had a whole series of these that were kind of the smaller size and longer strips. So I'm going to do a couple things with this one. I am this is a Bible journal that I do some stuff in on and off. I'm lining up my kind of medium broad nib with the angle, and then remember you want to point that angle down at your page. So I've got nice even coverage, kind of nice and slow sweeping back and forth across that page. I double check to make sure I'm getting some spray out. In some colors you're going to have better luck than others. A couple things to look for. Make sure that the angle of the pen is correct, especially with your sketch markers. They can get even slightly tilted and then they're not spraying. The nib might need to be pulled out just slightly, so you just pinch it and kind of pull it out gently. If you don't get anything, like this one's not getting anything. So I give it a gentle, real gentle pinch and pull. You'll see that here. I'm doing that off to the side, and suddenly I've got ink. So it literally is microscopic amounts of movements. You just are barely moving it, and suddenly it's got just enough of that marker edge to catch. Notice when I kind of attached this stencil down, I did it onto scrap pieces of paper versus onto the page itself. Those pages are really thin. And this is what I was curious about, that if I airbrushed, how much would that bleed through? And it really barely bled through at all. So I'm pretty excited about that aspect of it because I had not tried doing this with the airbrush with my Bible before. And I'm going to use some blue, and I'm going to kind of go over really super lightly the verse that I'm kind of highlighting for this particular entry. And then I'm also going to do some clouds, but I'm going to cut a stencil. So I just kind of created some scallop cloud shapes. And I'm using a blue with my airbrush still. And notice this time I'm just holding it down with my hand because I'm going to keep moving this one. And again, this is one of these days where I'm really just experimenting, folks. So you're seeing me try to figure out as I go really what I'm going for. So really lightly, the further I hold that gun away, it's going to be lighter still. And then I decided I kind of like that look. I want to leave that center area open, but I'd really like to put a little more blue, get a little more clouds. So I'm doing kind of flipping that stencil upside down and backwards and getting some different edges going along the edge of the page and filling that in. But this gives me kind of some fun base color to work with, and I can come back and add a few details and some journaling as well. You'll see most of that on there. I'm not going to show you all finished with the journaling, but you'll see kind of what the page is going to look like. But then I've got this wonderful stencil, and it's still covered in ink. And with Copic, you can't just wash that off with soap and water. You have to use a little bit of alcohol. But I also can do something else with that ink. I can push it through the stencil again. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a little bit of colorless blender just on a paper towel. And it works even better with a cotton rag, but for today, I'm just grabbing a paper towel. With the paper towel, it tends to absorb into the paper towel more, and so I'm picking more up on the paper towel than what I'm doing, getting it pushed into the stencil. But hopefully you can kind of see what I'm doing. I'm just circling on top of that stencil, getting a little more colorless blender solution on there. Again, pushing it from the stencil onto the paper below. It works a little better with more larger openings, but this is still working. I'm going to get kind of a neat, again, a second image with that same ink. I'm going to use a little bit of colorless blender. For this technique, you can use regular alcohol versus the colorless blender. It's what I have sitting on my counter, so I'm just using that, but you could use regular alcohol. And this is what I did with that second one, a little bookmark, and then there's my page with a couple details added, and I'll come back and add more journaling later. Thanks so much for joining me today. Have a very happy, colorful day.